So thank you first and foremost for being willing to do this. As a kind of a starting point, I should also say we're going to do Q&As at the end, so if you have any questions, just hang tight. We'll have some time once we've done all of our questions with the guys. So as a starting point, other than your titles that are up here, if you could just do a kind of a bit more of an intro around who you are, what you do. Jay, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'm Jay Cave. I'm Technical Operations Director at NAB. We're a large post house in this area of London of NoHo, and we make a lot of TV happen.
Chris?
I'm Chris. I'm the Managing Director of the Collectv and a Director of Creative Remote. Our core business is location into post, so doing all that preparation, location records, ditting, those sorts of services on site, and then Creative Remote is a offline only remote facility.
Richard?
I'm Head of Technical Services at ITN. I think we all know what ITN does, primarily news for ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, and we have a large post-production arm as well. I'm responsible for the technical engineering, in essence the design, build and support, as well as field operations and MCR and many other technical areas.
Thank you. Right, okay, so let's get into it. First of all, fair to say 2023 was a tough year in a number of ways. How did that affect, if at all, your plans to go to NAB? And Jay, if we start with you on the first one.
It made me very grateful to go. Yeah, it has been a tough year. I think we always approach it in a slightly different way each year, but certainly the last few years, we've put a lot of concentration on what's the return on investment. You know, we're purchasing kit, we're purchasing solutions, and we need to have a tangible result that we can sell to other people in the company or we can sell to clients. So I think we're trying to get that tangible result out in each meeting, really, more.
Is that the same from your side, Chris? Similar thinking?
Slightly different point of view. I think for us, where we are in our businesses, I feel we can't afford not to be there still. Like, just from a point of, we have to see the latest systems and things that are out there, because if we're not doing it, someone else will. It's been tough, as Jay said, and I think it's still going to be tough for a while longer. And the challenge we actually had was there was supposed to be more of us going this year, but because commissions are being so late, we actually had to pull people back because of some last minute things and basically some efficiencies. By booking it early, we ended up sort of renegading, going backwards on, and having to stand people down last minute and keep them back in the UK to fulfill last minute client requests. So yeah, that last minute in the commissioning had that impact for us for NAB.
Okay. And Richard, obviously you guys operate very differently,
Yeah.
so I assume you've got another perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think because news is our core business, we didn't have quite the difficult year that others had because we have fixed contracts over 5 years. That said, we always look closely at the value of sending people to these trade shows. We always send a smaller contingent to NAB for obvious reasons, but it is valuable to us, like yourself. It's good to be there, it's good to be seen, and it's good to also understand what the industry delivers, so it's worthwhile.
And I guess it's kind of an extension of the same question, but has the current market or just a general change over recent time affected how you approach not just NAB but IBC and all trade shows? And maybe if we start with you on the other end first, Richard, this time.
I mean, I think, no, not really. What I will say, though, is that during the pandemic, there were no trade shows, and I think that was a real loss to the industry. I think I still appreciate now that they've come back, they're coming back with a vengeance, and they add huge value to what we do, and I think what the industry does. So I think that's my view on it.
Yeah. Chris, similar?
Yeah, ultimately it's not made a difference in approach for us. We still need to be there. I think we get so much stuff we look at. I need to be seeing people, having things explained to me. I need to really understand them, and I can't understand a lot of those things remotely or from a presentation or from a website. So I still really get that value from having chats with people here, but also, you know, learning things from you guys at the shows and from vendors. So I still need that, and I think we're still going to need that moving forward.
I mean, so many of the companies that we deal with are US focused as well. So, you know, you can go to a show like IBC and you'll get a presence there, but it may just be a sales presence. If you go to NAB, you might get more of a technical presence. You might meet other people in that organisation you just wouldn't meet otherwise.
Okay, I guess the next question is kind of based, you touched upon vendors, Chris, and has it changed the vendors that you kind of you want to see, or the objectives you want to see when you get there? Kind of maybe we start with you because you touched upon it.
So I think Chris alluded to some of this in what he said. a lot of things that we look at now are kind of platforms rather than individual products, and I personally find those things a bit harder to understand what they can do for me and where I can apply those in our workflows. So I need to see that, understand it, because I've got to be the one who's then got to sell it to our workflows, into our productions and things like that. So that's why I still need that sort of face-to-face, that understanding, but I do need vendors to give us practical case studies, examples, and things where I can see, oh right, that's how I can apply it, because it's still not always that obvious to me.
Is that the same for you, Richard? Similar thinking?
It is the same, but I'd also say that, I mean, if we take Avid, I speak to Avid every day. So I don't need to fly to Vegas to speak to Avid, but all the smaller providers out there who I'll never see, never get the opportunity to see what they're doing, and that's important to me as well. So it's, you know, because the main vendors we all use, we are probably in communication every day with them, or most days. So it's seeing the other stuff that you don't generally see that's important to me.
Similar for you, Jay, there, kind of a chance to see lots of vendors in one hit.
Yeah, and everyone's so close together. I mean, interoperability is so important, and orchestration's a big theme of this show. So being able to see one vendor, find out what they can do, grab them by the hand, take them to another stand, say, well, this guy can do this, can you do the other end of it? You can't do that anywhere else. You can't do that on a Zoom. You can't just add another supplier on a Zoom chat very easily, you know, but you can actually do that physically, and it's quite good.
And I guess for seeing kind of all those vendors and partners, how do you typically then manage the schedule when it's a case of there's lots to see in one go?
I just go too hard, that's the problem. You know, we have this ridiculous Trello board where I don't leave any room for lunch or breaks, and then we just go full on. Because it's actually only really 3 days. I mean, on Wednesday morning, no supplier or vendor wants to be there Wednesday morning, so that's pretty much not a lot going on Wednesday morning, but 3 days previous is pretty solid. But it's almost not enough time. I didn't go to the central hall at all in the whole time I was there. So.
And your schedule, is that the same? It's just impossible, pretty much.
Well, I think Jay's got one thing there definitely right. Don't bother with any time for lunch, because it's pretty terrible at NAB.
You have enough at breakfast, it's normally...
Well, certainly dinner. I don't know, breakfast is sometimes missed if you're late for an appointment. I mean, for me, it's don't ever book any meetings in the morning, because you might not get there in time, or you might not be in your best form. Forget about lunch largely and squeeze something in, but also I do rely on Jigsaw particularly to help me and pinpoint. There is so much to see. You know, I end up with a Sunday where I leave it just for myself and I have a wander around and go and find those bits and pieces, but I want some really focused time on those last 2 days, forgetting Wednesday, as Jay said, to get through stuff and really get to the nitty-gritty of, right, what's coming, what you're doing, how can I apply that? And that's often with Avid and those vendors that we do speak to every day, but I need to know about what's coming next, and it's at those shows where we often get to see those things. And
for you, Rich, I suppose as well, where there's more of you, how do you manage your scheduling across the team?
Well, firstly, I fail every time. So we put in our meetings as we do, and then someone squeezes one in between each meeting, and then another one, and generally it's a struggle. So we tried every year. A couple of useful hints this year. For the first time, we managed all our meetings in one hall first. So Sunday was Central Hall, and Monday was South Hall, and we've discovered the step count drops massively when you do that, which is really effective. But you get more time. You actually get more time with your vendors then and everything. So you know that's good. Again, like yourself, I've used Jigsaw to help me navigate that part of the world. I use ES Broadcast with my studio production tools and everything, and using SIs like yourselves to guide me through what I should be looking at, because you know my problems better than I do most of the time, is really helpful and really makes my life easier.
Good, thanks for that. Is there more you feel you could get out of trade shows such as NAB, with them having changed slightly recently, or do you feel actually, well, they're quite well balanced, we're quite happy, just keep doing what you do? Richard, maybe you want to kick us off on that one?
I find there's a lot of good talks and a lot of good events outside of the actual trade show, which I never seem to find time to get to. So it's not a trade show challenge, it's a my challenge, but if I had more time to do that, I'd get more out of it, I think.
I think there's a few things NAB in particular needs to improve. You know, that with the lower footfall, you didn't feel it all the time on the show this year, but there were certain ends of the hall where it just felt like you're falling off a cliff, like just tumbleweed almost going past, which was a bit odd, and it's not a very efficient use of space. That the way the central hall was half, like not in use, and you end up at these two halls at opposite ends that takes you 15, 20 minutes, even if you get in a Tesla to get there. You know, that's not very good. They need to get that better, and the internet was woeful and embarrassing for some of the people trying to show their cloud-based products. that shouldn't be happening in our industry, let alone at a trade show when they're all paying so much for those systems. But trade shows in general, I hope that the shows we've got coming up in the UK and then IBC later in the year, I hope those efficiencies, that togetherness, we'll see and benefit from that. But also I hope that we'll see a bit more of the sort of UK team in general across the industry making it out to IBC, because there were definitely less Brits out in NAB this year.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Jay?
No, I think that sort of covers it. It's just crucial meeting people, and it's those little events that you go to. It might be that hour that you're at a supplier's drinks on a Tuesday before going to dinner, and it's those sort of events that can be almost as valuable as walking around a trade show floor, really.
And as an extension of the previous question, you kind of touched upon bits. I suppose we've got a fair few vendors and resellers ourselves in the room. What could we do more of? What could vendors do more of? Is it more of those things outside of the show, or just other asks altogether?
I think it is more of those things outside of the show where you're getting people together, and even if you're giving a little bit of a demo of your product to a group of people, you're starting conversation, you're getting people talking. But there's only so many days to do that, and there's often competing suppliers with events at the same time. But I think that's super valuable.
And I guess beyond that, one thing we noticed, and Chris touched on it, was that openness and integration to work together. And I assume, well, firstly, Chris, did you agree on that? And is that something you'd welcome more of at shows, but just in general?
I think so. I think, what Jay was just saying about there being more of those elements around the main trade show, isn't that the pub? Because there is no trade show almost. If that's the danger. It's great just getting all the people together. We're doing that here in this room now, which is nice to see, and I think useful, particularly the people that didn't make it out to NAB. And then the other point I touched on earlier, just going back to your sort of original question, was for me it's the case studies. I find a lot of these platforms that a lot of the vendors are selling really confusing and complicated, and I've been in the industry for quite a while. If I'm trying to tell production people and explain to them and give them and show them efficiencies, I need to understand it. So case studies and examples are the things I'd be asking for the vendors and for people who are spending all this money to be at these shows. Show me more of that stuff, because then I can really understand it and implement it.
I guess, Richard, for your side, taking that one step further, how close do we feel in general the vendor community are to the industry at present? Is there more they could do? And is it trade show based, or is it some of the other things the guys have referenced?
I think the vendor industry is close to what we're doing. I do think that. Some of the challenges I've had in the past and currently is when I'm on a stand, they're telling me what I want to hear, not what I need. And I challenge that sometimes. And then there's often a desire to oversell to me. And then when you get it back in, you start looking at it back in London, whatever, it doesn't quite do what they told me, or it's not quite how they sold it, or I misinterpreted it, or whatever. And I think we need more clarity around that. I think trade shows are brilliant, but there's a lot of people in a shop window selling you everything. And sometimes that doesn't actually meet the reality of what I expected or what I thought I was buying.
Especially when you're turning up and they're meant to know your workplace, they know you,
exactly.
So show me the specific bit.
Yeah.
I guess as a kind of general question, given kind of global divergence has been never more prevalent, does that impact how the importance to your side, the thinking around attending NAB and just general workflows and things you're looking at? Jay, from your side first.
It's really, for me, NAB isn't so much meeting people that live in that area of the world that are attending. It's more meeting suppliers that are actually based out there or have been acquired by a company that's based out there, or there's so much that's actually US focused, and there's quite a lot European focused. So with IBC and NAB, you get both, but that's really crucial, just meeting the right people.
And does the global kind of question, does that affect the tech you'd go and review, Chris?
It does and it doesn't. Our industry, and particularly the areas we both work in, our industries are often US productions or UK productions, or they're filmed out there, or so they're all so intertwined and things anyway, let alone end users wanting to work from different places. And I think, look at the list of vendors that are here tonight and how many of those are actually owned by US companies. That's partly why we need to keep going over there. But what's quite interesting and more important, and Chris Bailey touched on this earlier, is the security and those parts as well. It doesn't matter whether we're apart or together, security is something we're having to focus more and more as our systems become more cloud-based, more remote, all of those things. I say more remote. we're seeing more and more people come back in and working in edit suites, aren't we? But there's still so many elements or services that are cloud-based. The AI services are cloud-based, right? That's great. What's the security around it? And that doesn't matter on the geography of things. And so for all of those reasons, we still need these trade shows, and I think make the effort when we can to go to them wherever they are.
Richard, from your side, it's BAU, right? You've been global for...
Pretty much. We operate all around the world continuously, and it's a challenge, so yes.
Okay, time to dig into the tech a little now. AI, obviously, let's start there. Chris has spoken about some of the bits. From my side, it felt like there were actually some tangible kind of announcements, developments. We've spoken about some of the workflows, the Adobe piece, Telestream, Wasabi off the back of their acquisition. Did that kind of feel the case from your side whilst walking the floor? Still a lot of noise, but actually something that real-world developments in terms of workflow?
It's like a tangible bubble, really. Like you know it's a bubble, you know it's inflated, but you know it's going to take over the world anyway. But where we are now, there's a lot of tangible things, like Adobe's presentation was very tangible and very concrete in where they're going with it, and that's exciting. What Wasabi have done is great because it ties it to another product, and if you need storage and you need their storage, well, you're going to get those services on top. But there was a lot of people in the middle that had this sort of middleware product tagging AI services, metadata AI services from some other piece of middleware that you have to get your assets into, and they're not there already. Those sort of services are just going to disappear in a few years' time, I think. Once you can get all of that tagging, face detection, transcription in your NLE, whether it's Adobe or Avid, you're going to want it where your media is already. Yeah. You're not going to want to move it somewhere else to then get that service.
Chris, was it similar from your side?
I completely agree with everything Jay said there. I think the big vendors are having to have an AI offering. They're either acquiring it and bringing it in, as I think Wasabi have done, and that's a really interesting product, or you've got Ada with Avid and things like that. But either those big vendors that a lot of us have in our businesses already, those companies are having to bring it in one way or other, or you've got this middle ground, which some of them might be good and they might get acquired and then brought into those other products. Some of them aren't really worth the, what they're talking to you, and they're just selling you. As we're talking earlier, there's a pretty shop front, and there isn't much substance behind there. But I was really pleased, and Chris said this earlier, I couldn't agree more, that at IBC everything was AI, and it was doing my head in, and that was a lot less of this, and it was seeing the nubs of some practical applications at NAB, which is like, okay, some of this is going to be useful. There's still some noise, but yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
And Richard, where you've obviously already adopted certain AI models for workflows, but was there anything else you took away or you saw?
Well, we have a completely different view on this, I have to say, in many ways. So, first of all, I'll read this out. Our CEO has stated that nothing AI generated will go masquerading as journalism. So all these lovely tools we cannot use in news. Obviously, we do have a production arm. We are looking at that in production. So what we're actually looking at now, and an organisation called Open Origins, we're actually looking at watermarking our current libraries, because in 5 years' time I want to be able to sell you the real content of Mandela coming out of prison, not some AI-generated content, because we're actually looking at the other way. But the challenge with that is we're also looking to sell our libraries to these engines so they can recreate AI more accurately and monetize it that way. So then you've got to decide which way do you go, how do you do it, and how do you make sure you win on both sides of the coin, basically. So we have a slightly different view from a news perspective on AI that everyone else does. Having said that, looking at Telestream's orchestration tools around workflows is fantastic. The one thing I was disappointed in is I'm looking more for telemetry for maintaining equipment and everything. And the likes of EVS stated we're so busy working on our production AI tools, we're not looking within Cerebrum at creating some kind of AI at the moment. So I think we're probably a little bit behind the curve for everyone else. We're waiting for that to come in because we can't really benefit from a lot of what you've described.
It kind of goes back to listening to what you guys need, the big clients. Chris, I'm going to go to you first on this one because you've already touched upon the kind of security and orchestration piece. Certainly, Chris referenced some bits from his side, but it did feel like there was lots of noise there. What was your view of that, and kind of what's your view on that in the market presently in terms of kind of what's been proposed in trade show?
The most important thing that I learned at this NAB, sort of full stop, was with these AI, with this machine learning and all of this stuff, who owns the back end? How open is the back end? And that's a real risk, a real concern for all of us, because there's vendors, I think, getting more carried away than perhaps we are, who are responsible for our productions content. But who's going to have access to that? What I think we all need to do, and I want reassurances, is, and not just reassurances, I need to believe it, is that each of these products we look at, they've taken maybe a base level of machine learning, put that into their product, and then they've cut it off from the outside world. From that point onwards, either I need to own that and sell it and be open with our clients and tell them, or I'm happy for our clients to own it, so that it's their IP, it's their content. They should probably be the ones that own it. I don't really mind either way, but it can't be open to the outside world. From that point, when we're putting a client's content into it, everyone's got to be really clear on what are the benefits, who's learning from this, who's benefiting from it, because otherwise it could cannibalise our own content and the programmes we're making and our clients is making. So there's a massive risk there, and I don't completely trust everything we're being told yet, and I rely on people like Chris Bailey to point these things out to me and tell me, yeah, they know what they're doing with their security, and actually they're not investing in their security, they're not investing in their engineering, and we can't see what's happening behind the scenes. That's a concern. We probably shouldn't go near that for now.
And Jay, kind of a follow-on question, was there more from a security orchestration you would have liked to have seen, or are you kind of like, no, we're
I don't
all
think
right,
there was a lot on security, actually, strangely.
No.
I thought it was a bit lacking. Everyone just got so carried away with AI, they forgot about it. Maybe next year. But no, I didn't see a lot on the feature side of products. I didn't see a lot being discussed that could be discussed. But I mean, as Chris says, there's lots around AI. I mean, you ask various people around the show, what have you trained your model on? You don't get an answer. And that's actually going to be really quite important to clients. And right now, the sort of AI we can see is so generic in a way. I mean, it's fantastic if you're sitting with a library of footage and you need to search for red pillar boxes. But for us in a production, we need custom models for productions probably. We need to safeguard the footage that we've been given to train it just on that footage and keep that security in one place. So how useful most of the AI we've seen, probably not hugely useful, but there are security aspects to this in terms of the fact that we're being trusted with clients' footage and we've got to do the right thing with it. We can't just post it through someone else's AI model.
Richard, just before leaving the security and orchestration, anything else from your side?
Well, I mean, I'll go slightly off topic, but stay on security.
Yeah.
One of our challenges is actually the mainstream vendors providing software that operates with mainstream security tools. And there's often a conflict, certainly when you're accessing large files in editing tools and everything. And I would like them to almost come to the party a bit more and work alongside the Microsoft Defenders or whatever, and enable us to secure our platforms as securely as we need to. Being a news organisation, we upset quite a lot of people most days of our lives around the world, and we do get targeted quite extensively, so we have to be bulletproof. And that's a challenge when your vendors aren't thinking the same way we are and how you secure your platforms.
It goes back to that working together at a high level there. Jay, I'm going to come to you first on this one. So was there also an acknowledgement that perhaps from a few years ago, it doesn't always have to be cloud first, and a hybrid approach with on-prem and cloud working collaboration is a better route to take?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a change. I mean, if you looked at trade shows 3 years ago, everyone was just proving that they could put their product completely in the cloud because that's where everyone's going to be in the public cloud instantly. Now, most suppliers, most resellers that you talk to, and most other people are saying, well, no, we can be on-prem. Spectra had some, on-prem solution for storage as well. So your own data center, on-prem in your own building you've turned into a data center, public cloud, a mixture of the two. Hopefully at some point we'll just stop using the word cloud and we'll just talk about services and things will be a bit easier. But I think that has opened up now and people are realizing that it's not one size fits all. We need public cloud, totally. We need private cloud, we need a mixture of the two.
Same from your side, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to be able to ring fence certain things and know exactly what's going on with it and exactly what it's going to cost us. That's why you've got these products like LucidLink, like what Wasabi are doing with their storage. We can't have this, it's going to cost an amount or this much per minute or this much per download. A lot of our clients' budgets and the commissions those budgets are related to don't relate to that. You can't just tell them, it cost you 5p. And 2 seconds later, every 2 seconds, and then, your edit overruns, and then we don't need another multiplier to make those budgets even less achievable that we struggle to understand or safeguard our clients against. So, yeah, that's my view.
I think both those answers were kind of very, very data-centric. I assume you as IT maybe look at that differently, where there's been developments from cloud-based workflows.
Yeah, in terms of cloud production, we look much more around actual production. So we're looking at things like Live View in basically outside there. Live View Studio is a new product that's come on. We've got an election coming up, 2 elections actually, one in the US coming up soon. So we're looking at potentially using a Live View Studio product to do regional content, specifically on a region streamed over our digital platform. So if you're in Leeds, you can get your Leeds returning officer at that time, as opposed to watching the mainstream output, which may not talk about your area at all. So that's a great use of cloud. We're also using GVAMP for a DR platform, so Channel 4 News now can go fully live on GVAMP with a Leeds studio spun up in the cloud. So we're looking at cloud more around remote production and production values rather than sort of content, because all our content is still on, and we've just done a huge upgrade with Avid and it's still all on-prem.
How do you track that? How do you bring that all back to the wider organisation, back at base?
What we have in our world is we have problems, and then the engineers have to go and resolve them. So it's more a case we start at the problem end rather than bringing a solution back and finding how we can use it. So we have a lot of challenges, obviously, around the world, whether you're in Gaza or wherever, and we get told we need to do this, we need a camera, we need to edit, we need to access media from the UK, we're using Media Central UX, we're using multi-site, those tools. But those tools are products of problems as opposed to us fixing a problem we didn't know we had, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. Is that the same from your side, Chris? Is there a means to track, kind of bring things back from your perspective, track ROI? How do you manage that?
I'm not using anything fancy. I haven't got a CRM or anything like that behind me where I'm inputting everything every night when I go back to my hotel room. I've got a few notes in my iPhone and things like that, but for me there's some of it I keep in my head because I'm like, those things aren't ready yet, but I need to keep an eye on those products, and I did that IBC and it was good to revisit those at NAB and see, okay, now that's something that I need to speak to the rest of my team about. But also, if I get a client call up with a certain scenario, I'm like, oh, okay, that product was pretty much there. That can probably do that. Let's keep those discussions going. So there's some things I'm going to pick up now I'm back with those vendors things where I need to either do some proof of concepts or actually get it out on some shows. And then the rest of my notes are, I need to sit down with our heads of department and just go through a few bits, because either it's about certain project leads and things or certain bits of technology where it's like, right, we did that job that way this time. Next time we need to look at these elements and get some quotes from those products and see how those could fit in when and if hopefully that job comes back next year.
Jay, I saw you weren't even on the iPhone, you were scribbling away in some meetings, so how do you...
I write everything in a small book basically. No, we write a report and then we think we're going to write the report as we go, and we never do. It's always on the plane or right on the last day. And then we sit down with different teams and we get back and go through things.
Okay, I'll come straight back to you on this one. So without wishing the year away, we've spoken about a bit around what vendors could do more of, but we're very close to MPTS and then obviously IBC. If you could pick one thing, what would the ask be of partners such as ourselves or resellers to do rolling into those trade shows?
Oh, rolling into the trade show, I don't know. I mean, I can give you my sort of pet peeve of being at a trade show at a supplier's booth, which is, and it's really difficult being a supplier. You're on your 50th meeting on day 2, right? But the worst thing is being there and just being rattled through a demo without being asked first, what are you doing? What's your company? What you're trying to achieve? And it's not tailored. So I think that tailoring to the customer is really important. Whether that's at a trade show or that's how suppliers outreach to customers with emails or whatever that might be, instead of just giving us a generic newsletter, make a post-centric newsletter and a broadcast-centric newsletter and, target the message a bit.
Yeah, I think I'd go slightly further on that same vein that Jay said and just remind all suppliers you've paid an awful lot of money to be at those trade shows. Please have the right people on your stands to demonstrate your product, because if they're then not asking the right questions, if they don't understand your business, it's a waste of time. If anything, it's worse than a waste of time. You'll have lost me as a future client, because if you're not interested, why have I bothered to come and waste half an hour on...
It could be the right product, but how do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, and I touched on this earlier, is just please try and get away from just having a screen on your stand in front of some stools, not dissimilar to this, where you just talk me through it step by step. Give me some real life examples, because that is what inspires me, and that's what makes me see how I can use your product in my areas of work.
Mine's a slightly different challenge. I don't know how you're going to fix this, but if I bring a team of people to IBC this year, which I will, we'll go to a stand, we'll go for a demo. The 3 people at the front can hear what's been said. The 4 people behind can hear nothing. They will switch off, it's a waste of their time, and they will start talking, which makes the problem even worse because they're talking behind you. So if we could use some form of technology, whether it's microphone and earpieces, I don't know. But I think with smartphones and everything else, there must be tools we can embrace now where when a group of you go to a stand, you can all hear what's been said, and it doesn't matter who's around you, because quite frankly, a lot of my team switch off because they hear nothing.
Final question on my part. So as seasoned attendees, what's the one key bit of advice you'd give to everyone in the room to... Richard?
Well, I'm hoping 51% of the people that went this year paced themselves. That's all I can say, both during the day and in the evening.
For me, and this is still quite a raw experience, is if you're going to try and find your cheap flights, it will come back and bite you at some point. So, yeah, take the benefits while it's good, but it will come back and bite you.
Can I just interject? I flew BA. It took me 2 days to get there, and it wasn't cheap.
So it wasn't just yours, was it? Jay?
Yeah. God, I don't know. Book a couple of hours on a flotation tank when you get back, maybe. Relax.
And I just want to finish with a big thank you, clearly, for Richard, Chris, and Jay.